This next segment is not about anything in particular. It's just about whatever these four people decide they want to talk about. And I'll tell you, when you meet them, you'll know that I'm taking a risk. So I'd like to welcome Anna Catalano, Toby Redshaw, Jonathan Wilson, and Ted Wright to the stage. So you can kind of think of this, I guess, as a brief version of the McLaughlin Group. Yeah, you're the McLaughlin Group. And by the way, you guys don't know about this, but look at the sales.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Oh
hey,
my
Tobe,
gosh.
there, your nose apparently has got a video camera in it.
It's drug abuse.
I know you've been doing some work with intelligence,
good,
but
John.
gee, that's really extreme.
Oh, gosh.
So I asked these four longtime TWINians and friends from very different backgrounds and interests to just pay attention. Some of them do that in variable ways, but I asked them to actually sit in this room and pay attention to everything that's happened so far and pull out a couple points, comments, things that bothered you, things you disagreed with, things that you thought were essential that you wanted to underscore. So I'd like to start with Anna.
Oh, I knew you were going to start with
Okay,
me.
I'd like to start with Toby.
So I will tell you a very brief story, and maybe it'll help with the gift that this thing can give you. And I want to tell a story because I was with Chris and Elliot, the two storytellers that we saw, and the problem with those guys is they tell great stories, and then a bartender walks up and goes, "It's last call." Oh no! So. You've heard a bit
Which
of this story
happened last
before.
night, actually.
Yeah. So January 5th, 2010, I wake up and I can't do the buttons on my shirt. My tongue is doing weirdness. And long story short, I Google it and, oh, I'm having a stroke. Straight to Queen Mary's Hospital, a wonderful public hospital in Britain that truly sucks. And they go, "Oh, it's an aneurysm. We've got to stick you in one of those MRI tubes for 22 minutes while you're choking on your tongue." So that gift was, I'm massively claustrophobic after that and have some very weird dreams. But that night it gets even better. The ward chief walks in and looks at my chart. I'm in bed. He goes, "Yeah, looks like ALS. I'll come back and talk to you about that in the morning." And I went, "You mean the one that's killing Stephen Hawkins, that one?" And he goes, yeah, exactly that one. I think you call it Lou Gehrig's disease. And I went, "Great." I said, 100% fatal. "Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100% fatal. I'll see you in the morning, gotta go." Longest night of my life, very long night. But then I get a real doctor who goes, "You tore your carotid artery, here's the proof, and you're gonna be fine in a few weeks, not a problem." So the gift was going from "I'm going to die horribly" to "I'm gonna live." You recalibrate your whole life, right? And that was a true gift, but you know it's a lie, so you lose it. And I struggle to get that feeling back. If you remember Daniel, Donato, and Deng, that's the same gift. You look at their stories and their journeys and let that recalibrate your heads and go, what am I doing? How am I living? What is my approach to this finite amount of time? And that can be the same gift without having to go to Queen Mary's Hospital. So I think spot those gifts in this conference and just recalibrate yourself, and you'll be better for it.
Great. Okay, now Anna.
Okay, now I'm ready. Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You know, every year when I come to Ken, I leave saying, this is the most valuable 3 days of the year because it stretches who I am, and it stretches my ability to think about the things that can be done. And, you know, yesterday was phenomenal. This morning is fresh in our minds. This was such an inspirational morning. And I think the thing that is the greatest challenge for all of us is to leave with that feeling that I know you're going to leave with tomorrow, and maintaining that and taking that with you to your day job every day. It's easy for me because my day job is not one that's every day 9 to 5 because I do board work.
But it used to be. You know that world well.
It used to be, and I think it's really hard. You know, President Fox talked about it today as well, having compassion, feeling the compassion when you listen to these inspirational stories, and taking that back with us so that when we are in our day jobs and we're influencing people who make big decisions that impact a lot of people, to make sure we take that feeling with us. I think that's the greatest challenge, but the most important thing we have to do when we leave here.
Great, thanks, Anna.
Yep.
Jonathan.
Ooh. Okay, so first off, is Professor Nelson Levy here?
Yeah, he is.
Hey, how you doing? Okay, so what you all don't realize is that there was an after dark session, and it was a very fascinating after dark session. There is a watershed that we can't go past, so I can't tell you everything that we discussed, but we started off with neuroscience and ended up with Dr. Dre, which was fascinating. And it was a good zeitgeist for some of the things throughout the day. The day started off really well for me because, is Mandar here as well?
Mandar? He's not in the room now.
Oh, he's meditating.
He's still trying to make bail.
Okay. So
He was with you, huh?
there was a pre-kin session which was about meditation and mindfulness and emotions. And one of the things that Professor Levy rightly pointed out was that when we talk about reflection or introspection, what about extrospection as well? You know, so I started to think about this whole. You know, most of today and yesterday has been dealing with egos, right? There was the Kellogg thing about having low egos that the Kinnian students were saying. And Mandar spoke about controlling your ego and asked people what that actually means. Now, I don't want to bore people to death with Freud or anything like that, but I think that it's interesting because we're now at a stage when Kin's been going for a while. And remember, you know, previous years there's been change at scale and there's been growth for good. And these are really good, powerful macro messages. But then after you've sent out those macro messages, then the reality hits, which is, well, how do you actually operationalize those things? How do you make them happen? And, you know, I've been to enough conferences over the past 12 months, and one of the buzzwords is authenticity. And we heard about authenticity here. Now, the challenge for a kin gathering is authenticity as a kind of throwaway term or a buzzword isn't enough, because the next question is, well, what does authenticity mean? Yeah. Now, I could argue that anything is authentic, but that doesn't necessarily resonate, right? You could be a pain in the backside and be authentically a pain in the backside, right? You could be resistant to change and authentically resistant to change. So I started to think that it's not just about authenticity, but it's about the surroundings and the environment, which is why I think kin is so powerful, because you're having to evaluate who you are and then also what the reality of your surroundings is. So there is an element of both, and I mentioned this in our After Dark debate. Truth and reality are really important, which is why I would reject some of the conferences that you go to where they ask you to be pumped up and ask you to kind of accentuate an attribute that you might not even possess. Yeah. And I think Mando was very good at setting a scenario where he was asking us to do what? To be critical, and also to be supportive, and also to learn how to ignore. These were three things that we had to learn how to do. And in any other circumstance, you can't imagine that in leadership training, you'd be taught how to be critical, to learn how to ignore, to practice ignoring, and then to practice to be supportive. They seem to go against the grain. Where I might kind of agree to disagree is that he spoke about positive and negative emotions. So anger, he did deal with, and he spoke about negative states. And I would kind of reframe that in saying that there are emotions, and we should learn how to understand the reality and truthfulness of those emotions and get the blend right. So for me, authenticity or compassion or collaboration, all of these things center around us as individuals, understanding ourselves very well, but also growing to understand the reality of our surroundings very well. And I think that that's, in some respects, fairly straightforward, right? You've got 30 seconds, you can get your smartphone out, you've got smart thumbs, and you can have a really smart mind in 30 seconds. But the reality of the situation is that, you know, and there was talk of some of the markets and entrepreneurs in different sectors. You can't substitute expertise, hands-on, on-the-ground expertise, doing the air miles. And I think, you know, we've met at enough conferences, and those real experiences of treading in somebody else's footsteps, putting your fingerprints on artifacts in different countries, and sharing, you know, laughter, tears, and all of those experiences with people is really important. And the challenge for us is, because we heard yesterday, right, what goes on in Miami
Never
never happened,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Well, we can't have that happen here, right? We have to think about how we can distill these experiences and how we can take them outside of this amazing 2.5-day event and take them into our workplace. And I think that becomes the big challenge, that you have to know ourselves, we have to reboot ourselves, and we have to try and give people that kind of nugget of information. Because I'm not going to see Ted for another few months unless I can convince you to come to Jakarta or something like that. And so I don't want this to be another situation where in 12 months' time we're sat, I've got a different colored pair of trousers on, a different colored pair of shoes, and I'm saying the same thing: authenticity, change, innovation, entrepreneurs, young people of the future, millennials, because they start to become not even mantras, they just become sound bites.
Authenticity becomes inauthentic.
Right.
Right.
Ted,
A philosophical paradox.
By the way, thank you, Jonathan. That was great. All 4 of these people could just riff for the next 45 minutes, and I would be entertained
That would be
by
fun.
that and enlightened. Ted, your opportunity, thoughts?
So, building off something that President Fox talked about is the power of face-to-face. So, the most animated President Fox got when he was like, let's forget all of the digital and let's forget all of the TV. And he got right up, Luis, it might have been you or somebody was sitting right there, and he was having this conversation that he wanted to have with all of these people and talk about that. And as I was walking around and watching everybody yesterday, I thought, how interesting. I mean, we're tweeting and we're retweeting and we're Facebook posting, and that's all grand. But where you really got the connections and where you really got the information was face to face. I mean, the film that we saw this morning, The Man in Africa, and creating, I mean, those are all people that we're watching a film of people having a conversation face to face and then taking that information after the people left and saying, dude, check it out. We can actually make arms for people again. Oh, how does that work, right? And all the background was them, and then all of a sudden everybody has these arms. And everybody's able to feed themselves, and the world is a better place. So the power of face-to-face, even though we are living in a much more digital world, the power of face-to-face is still triumphant over every other channel. And so that's my favorite part. This is the only conference I clear my calendar for a year in advance, because I don't know who I'm going to see, but I know they're going to be interesting. And from there, we can all just be humans and be our rational selves and just go forth. So face to face.
Thank you, Ted. A couple thoughts. I want to ask the other panelists to talk for a second about this face-to-face digital thing, because it's something we all confront. And Jonathan, you think about it a lot in your work. And a quick shout out to IDM, which is our social media partner. They've been distributed throughout the program, doing tweeting, helping support it, because we've never really tried to tell our story. I mean, the Kin has never really tried to tell our story that much. We just kind of get together, we do our stuff, and it's wonderful and it's lovely, but we're trying to reach out more. So some more insight into face-to-face digital thoughts that you might have. Anna?
I think it's a challenge, and it's a balance that we have to strike. On one hand, when you're tweeting, you can't possibly be hearing 100% of what's going on. And I realize that because I know that when I'm tweeting, I just missed something, and I don't like that. On the other hand, if you're on the receiving side, you realize that the way people are getting information today is changing, and digital is how they're getting information. I'm currently working with a cultural group in Houston that's trying to grow our audience, and a big piece of that is, what's the digital platform? How are we going to communicate? People don't come to the theater anymore. They don't come to the opera house only to hear music. How are we going to reach new audiences? And so digital is a real big piece of that, periscoping and tweeting and letting people know things are going on. So I think it's something that we as leaders have to figure out how we balance. I don't know that I have an answer for it, but we can't live with it. We can't live without it.
Yeah, great.
I think it's blending slow and fast culture. There is something very real-time and fun and instantaneous about tweeting. And even I realized that I liked somebody's tweet who was just one seat away from me. I was like, oh my God, I recognize you. Oh, I just liked your tweet, right? You know who you are. Now, I think that side is really important. I'm glad that Kin's taken it on board, because we're in a moment here. And the short, fast cultural aspect of this is that you're not going to care so much about each other in a few days' time. As much as you want to, you're going to disappear and you're going to go back to your families and to your work. And the tweet or the social media footprint or the selfie. I've now discovered that if you take a selfie with somebody, if you email them, they don't delete your email. And they feel compelled to reply because you've taken a picture, you've got their face and your face in a photograph. So, I want to try and get another couple hundred selfies before the end of the day. That'd be quite good, right? But there's something quite beautiful about the aspect of social media. The long tail aspect is that you could send a tweet and then a year, 2 years later, somebody says, I saw that moment that you said that thing, and it could lead to an amazing opportunity. And I'm fascinated, especially in emerging markets, at the long tail aspect of real-time communication. There you go.
Now I'm going to tweet it.
So it's really, because that's the legacy. I mean, you can see that I burnt a bit of skin tweeting, right? Social media team, I kept you liking, right? Nothing but love, okay. So I tried really hard to be like one of my students just for a couple of days, then I can go and disappear again. But I think it's really important now because the reality is that there is an art to storytelling, but storytelling has to go on different platforms in different lengths of time, different tones, and it resonates in different ways. And so I've had to learn like how to be, pithy in 140 characters or 20 pages or,
And the whole
face-to-face.
dimensionality of storytelling, communication, and connection has changed markedly in the past decade. There are multiple additional dimensions, and I want to thank Toby Redshaw for real-time being a twit right here on stage. With that Twitter, come on, Twitter, nobody got that?
We got it.
Yeah, it was just like a joke. It just missed the funny component.
Right.
Thank you.
It wasn't
What did I
worth it.
say about risk? What did I say about risk?
Keep
All right.
playing, keep playing.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Hashtag pithy.
Well,
So-
remember
so
for
look-
example a couple of years ago with the bluegrass band.
Yes.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that case study.
So it's interesting about slow and fast culture, but the data, that all of the numbers that are out there, all of the survey data, everything for the last decade is that social media is about 10% of all the conversations, and face-to-face is 70%, and over the phone, either SMS or text is another 20. So the reality is, and then when you talk, Facebook and Twitter will both tell you, they're very public about it, that the same conversation between the same two people on one of their platforms is between 1/10 and 1/100th as trusted and as valuable as that conversation between two folks. So, or with a group. So that's why this is so interesting and so why I come to Ken. There's a lot of people, Jonathan and I have all kinds of fun. We're on LinkedIn. We're like, hey, did you see this? But I look forward to, in fact, I brought you a t-shirt. You pinged me the other day. And so I brought you a t-shirt. And I physically am going to give this to him because it's fun. We're just doing that. But it's just so much more valuable
I didn't get a
for
t-shirt.
people.
I didn't get a t-shirt.
But I guess as well, there's the one thing on
I'll send you a
face-to-face. But if you look at the markets like,
Yes.
Saudi Arabia and Indonesia,
Yes.
right? In the top 10 tweeting nations, as Indonesia's got 2 cities. You've got 250 million people, 17,000 islands. Is it Yogyakarta and Jakarta or Bandung or something? And then in Saudi Arabia, there's Riyadh and there's another place. There are places that you wouldn't...
Jeddah.
Yeah, and Jeddah as well. You wouldn't think that Saudi Arabia and Indonesia would be Twitter crazy. And there are interesting, I spoke to one blogger who's a designer as well, and she has like 4 million followers on Instagram. And one of the behavioral changes that I noticed was, I said, how do you get 45,000 likes when you just, switch on a light or something? And whatever she does, she gets 45,000 likes. She says, because I send I upload my picture just after sunset prayer. So people pray, so the behavioral changes, people pray, and then they check their phone.
That's how I do it.
You
That's
heard it
change
here.
at scale. Well, that's it. Don't you? As opposed to, as opposed to sending work emails when you're on the toilet, right?
So Toby, one more comment, and then I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a comment opportunity, Toby. But I'm going to give a question that I want the other three to think about while you're responding, pontificating, and that is, it's our last question. You haven't been prepped for this, but to what should kin aspire? To what should kin aspire in the future? Okay, and I want you to do it in 3 words. It could be 1 word, 2 words, or 3, but 3 words. You may use hyphens if you must. Toby, your comment.
So I think all innovation efforts should insert and embrace one word, and it's at President Fox Institute down in San Francisco del Rincon. One of the things he does with kids with leadership is very innovative work, very inspiring work, but it's wrapped in the word pragmatism, right? It's about getting shit done, right? And I think there's a gravitational pull when you're doing the innovation stuff for it to be a little ethereal. And I think we've seen 20 examples of innovation married to pragmatism got stuff done. So I think that is...
Are those your 3 words? Getting shit.
Oh, no, he's just giving you time. He's giving you time to think about your response. Yeah.
So, no, but those might have been. But no, I'm going to let you guys do your 3 words, and then I'm going to do mine, and mine will be bigger.
Okay, great.
Bigger shit done.
Ted, you're usually fast on your feet.
One word, my word is community. That's what these things are. And that's all of the value. This is why TED has so much less value than it used to have, because it's online and blah, 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 but you're not getting together and it's not the people. Community breeds excellence. Excellence brings more interesting people like Vicente Fox and the filmmakers and all the rest of that stuff. So community, that is our alpha and our omega. To be all
And
Greek.
community builds trust, and that is the missing ingredient for innovation and entrepreneurship. Jonathan.
Cool. 3 words. Reduce unconscious bias.
Reduce unconscious. Well, how can I do that? I'm unconscious.
Nelson could tell you after 9 p.m. though.
But it involves swearing.
But no, I
like that.
biases. If you're interested in innovation or entrepreneurship or doing new things or figuring out the future, as we all must be, then biases need to be something that's on our mind on a regular basis. So why don't we talk about that and integrate a segment of some sort next year about biases, and maybe it's an interactive segment. It's not just somebody speaking about it.
I guess you don't know. I mean, a lot of time you don't know unless you actually do the air miles, or unless you put yourself outside your comfort zone. You've always spoken about not going to the same people asking for the same advice.
Right.
And so I've learned a lot from going outside of my comfort zone to different areas, and then thinking, my goodness, but I didn't realize that I had a disposition towards this or that. And I think helping people would help, because it's the soft skills. I mean, the big problems we know. There are no elephants in the room. The reality is that people are what get in the way of of change and scale and all these things. It's not technology. It's not it's people, and it tends to be these little sticking points that prevent somebody from going the extra mile, from making that connection.
Let's talk about a segment for next year. Toby.
So I'm going to steal a quote from a famous French aristocrat and give you a 40% increase on the 3-word count. Passion without precision is chaos.
Okay, so what am I supposed to do with that?
I was actually expecting
T-shirts.
T-shirts.
I was expecting it to be in French. I'm actually really disappointed.
I can, but I have to dress up when I do that. The 17th century sort of French look, do that a lot on weekends. So what that really means is, be passionate about this stuff, own it, dig in, but you've got to be pragmatic and precise and get shit done. That's what that means. Generalized, oh yeah, I love your topic, that's going to be great, we should do unbiased filtering, whatever it is, but I don't do anything about it, that's a problem, right? So,
Great.
And I just realized you're black. And English. And English. And English.
Wait, well, careful. Scottish.
Are you really?
Yeah.
That would explain a lot.
And Toby's a UK citizen who just accused a Scot of being English. That is something.
Yeah.
Fight!
I'm gonna call Peter Bryant Australian any minute now.
Great. Thanks, Toby. Anna, last word.
3 words. Set the bar. And I would say Ken should set the bar for us personally. It should set the bar for what we expect out of each other and our organizations. It should set the bar for what it takes to be a phenomenal entrepreneur, because Ken has done that in the past, and I think it continues to do it.
Great. Thank you very much to all four of you. We're going to set the bar higher for each of us and differently. It's not always about high. It could be very different. Digital face-to-face, boy, we grapple with that all the time as human beings, and that's one of the reasons I agree with you, Ted, that I certainly clear my calendar to be here.
Yes, and we thank you for
We're
that.
about that.
And a lot of our time, the core team and the board and everybody else, because there is something about being together, especially, you know, Jonathan, you and I see each other twice a year. Now, maybe we'll be lucky one year and see each other 3 times, but we're fortunate to see each other twice a year. Jonathan, you mentioned blending introspection and extrospection, Nelson Levy's observation. Who are we in this environment? And hopefully the environment is a place that we can be something a little bit different and explore differently, but then how do we take that forward into our lives, into this slow, fast balance that we have to determine? Anna, it's stretching who you are, who we are. It's stretching who we are. That's what I want. That's what we want to happen. We want to figure out how to do more of that. If people have ideas, let us know. And who we are in our everyday normal lives, because they sometimes will become recalibrated by events outside of our control, as Toby pointed out. And that is a gift, but it's a gift we can give to ourselves with a little bit of determination and honesty and that 5 minutes every day to reflect so that we can take the gift before the world does it to us. Thank you very much to the panelists for your insights.
Thank you, Rob.